Warp Core Breach, Episode 26. Pleasant Surprises.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons!
Shields up, red alert!
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach, Episode 26. On this episode, Nick and David talk about Weapon Zero and the pleasant surprise. Griffin comes under attack. Dan previews the Void OP. Natasha highlights some Wave Zero crew. The faction report deals with fighters in a myriad of unique ways. And then we all pass out our Valentines to the cards that we love.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Odo to my bucket.
There's some goop in my bucket. Waxana, Waxana.
We just had to go silly for Valentine's Day. We could have gone Luxana to Odo, Luxana to Picard, something like that.
Or any of the other awkward pairings in Star Trek.
Right. There are a fair number of them.
Mm-hmm.
But Odo and his bucket just seemed appropriate. So, it's been a few weeks since we've actually had a proper episode. The Golden Core Awards don't really count as a full episode. That's kind of a special thing for us.
So we're back to normal this week. Well, what passes for normal in our neck of the quadrant?
What is normal?
What other people tell themselves they are to get through the day.
I've never liked normal.
No. I rather consider the term mundane.
Yeah, it's more exciting to be whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what keeps you folks listening to us.
Yay!
So, it's been, 3 weeks? 4 weeks? 3 or 4 weeks since we've actually had an episode. What's been going on with you, Nick?
Well, our Star Trek Attack Wing group that we host on Wednesdays has grown. We've got 6 to 8 regular folks coming in and playing, so we've got 3 and 4 tables going, which is just thrilling for me. Like, whether or not I get to play, I get to help new people learn the game, get to coach them through, get to share the love of the game.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear that things are growing in Vancouver.
Absolutely.
It's warming my heart, because I know you've been having struggles with growth, especially when we first started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And now, half a year later, to hear things are going better is like, okay, hey, we're making a difference.
Darn right.
And that's the best thing. We started this, and both you and I said, we want to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And what you've got going on is evidence that a difference is being made.
Absolutely. And a lot of what it is sort of cross-promotion. It's like I also co-lead a Star Trek Vancouver meetup group, and I have 2 other sort of co-founders with me, and we've got around 200 members. But, when I'm posting the events for the Attack Wing meet for the Wednesdays, everybody that comes is pretty much just through Facebook, so they don't RSVP on the meetup page. And I since asked them to RSVP there to show our members that people are actually showing up for this. It's not just me posting an empty event every week. So now that they're seeing that, they're coming out of the woodwork, they're showing up, they're interested, they're excited, and they go, hey. So awareness is the biggest part of all of this, about promoting your group. Make sure people know that you exist. The idea isn't enough. It's a great place to start, but you need a little more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And typically, once you have a group, it causes more people to want to show up because it's something fun to do.
Right. And people don't feel like they're stepping into uncharted territory overall. It's like, oh, there are other people that are interested in this, so I won't feel alone.
Yeah, even when you get a new person, they're going to be like, oh, hey, you guys look like you're having fun. Mm-hmm. Let me join.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of stigma attached to geekdom, nerddom, all this kind of stuff. And while like the Avengers movies and all this other stuff that's pumping out of Hollywood and everything is really strengthening that, there's still a lot of ground to be covered. So every little bit helps.
Yeah, at my last OP, there was some folks in playing Magic. When we were done, I had a great match in my third round, and afterwards they came over and they were like, "You guys look like you were having a lot of fun. Tell me a bit about the game."
Right on.
And I'll tell you more about that match in a minute, but it was just really cool to tell them little bits and pieces, and I was able to kind of spin the game in a way of how it connected to Magic, and in terms of building your team before you came to the event, in terms of setting up combos that worked well. You know, ultimately telling them it was about making your team work and interacting with your opponent and having to change your plans sometimes. And sometimes you realize you're completely mismatched because you just don't have the right setup for what they have.
Yeah.
But I think there was a lot of fun in playing that game in a game store. And naturally you're attracting people who already have a bit of that nerdum geekdom in them.
Right.
But for them to notice, like, hey, you guys look like you're having fun and you're being stressed out, but it's in a good way. And they can tell the difference between anger and fun and
impassioned play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've seen the impassioned play from their group, and it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you just respect it, even though you may not be a fan necessarily of what they're doing. You go, what you're doing sounds like fun, and keep it up. Like,
yeah.
No matter what you're doing, no matter what you're passionate about, make sure you're having fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to tell him, hey, there's a Star Wars game that's similar to this. There's a Dungeons and Dragons game that's similar to this. If you're interested, you can try out one that fits the theme that you would feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, you most closely relate to.
Yeah, and they seemed at least more interested in that. And I said, I know a lot about Star Trek. I know a decent amount about Star Wars, and I know very little about the D&D version, but I could figure it out.
Right.
So, if you wanted me to help you out and learn stuff. So we'll see. See if that leads anywhere. But, the worst you ever do is have a conversation with somebody and you're pleasant, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
So, the reason that game was so exciting, and this is where it gets good. So, random pairings. I was 1-1 going into the round. My opponent was the only 0-2 player. And that was just the way seedings worked and who had already played whom and all of that. But we were the last match to finish. And it came down to my Excelsior build against his Fed fighters. If I killed them, I win the tournament. On fleet points. There would have been 4 of us at 2-1, and I have the most fleet points.
Right.
If I win the match without killing him, I come in second. If he kills me, I finish 4th.
Wow. Quite the diverse.
Yeah. I took a warp core breach.
Ooh.
Yeah. I kind of gulped at that one. Because in my second match, I lost a ship to a warp core breach. That was the final nail in my coffin for the entire fleet. So that was a lot of fun. It was actually more of an act of mercy. The ship was going to die anyways. It was just a matter of time. So it saved us about 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, no big deal. But I ended up pulling a 4 reverse with ready room.
Ooh.
He did not see that coming. And I'd already taken out a lot of his fighters with weapon ports from Nunk's Marauder.
Ooh.
Thought that was probably about the worst blind to pull for Temporal Cold War OP3. Turned out to be my saving grace. Yeah, I landed 3 hits and just went token.
Oh.
Yeah, he was reeling after that. But we just had a swing back and forth match. We both had Vorchas. He had a bioship. and he had pulled the Klingon booster. So it just came down to dice rolls. Going into the last round, I roll my attack die. It comes up Battle Station, but it was on a crit and it just fell over. We were watching it. It's like, no, falls. I'm like, phew.
You're talking about for your warp core roll, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm like,
for a second, wow.
Okay. I live. We're good. I pull my reverse. He pulls his. He pulled a come about with his fighters, so he's where he thought I'd be, and I'm behind him. And we're like, okay, or maybe he pulled a turn. I don't know.
Fish in a barrel.
Didn't matter. But of course, I'm on Ox Power, so I have no quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm running Hathaway Riker at this point. So this is just 3 straight up dice.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry, 5 straight up dice. It's Type 8 and upgraded.
Okay.
But in the previous round, I'd forgotten to use upgraded phasers to get a second attack. Otherwise, this round wouldn't have even been necessary.
Right.
But we do this, and I end up killing him. But then the guy in second had been watching the match, and he's like, just for curiosity, roll 1 attack die for your warp core breach next round. Comes up a crit.
Which, of course, who knows?
Who knows, but it seems legitimate.
Yeah.
But we're handing out prizes at the end, and I just, my opponent's 0-3 at this point. I hand him my Zendis. I'm like,
aww,
you deserve it after that. Because we always play such amazing matches. We have never had a bad match when we play.
Between you and that player?
Yeah, between me and London.
Oh, nice.
And he is just a fantastic player. He started playing with us recently. He's played out in the Bay Area, so some of the Bay Area guys know who I'm talking about. But I don't know what it is. Our builds seem to kind of mesh in that neither one of us dominates the others.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something there. And I love our play styles seem to sync up. And every once in a while, dice will factor in and it'll just be a slaughter. But it's rare. A lot of the time we just have those protracted matches and it'll come down where we're sitting there calculating fleet points at the end and it's like, okay, I got 67. I got 71. But those are the kind of matches you love where it's like, this feels even. Like, nobody should have to lose this match, but somebody does. In a day that was filled with pretty good matchups, that was the match that I will probably remember for a very long time.
Oh, those feel so good, don't they?
Yeah.
Regardless of the outcome.
Regardless of the outcome. Like, I would have been happy in any of those 3 outcomes. Mm-hmm. I table him, I win without tabling him, or he kills me. Any of those 3 would have made for a great story. And that's the great thing. That's why we're still here. That's why we're still doing what we're doing.
Right.
And that's just the really cool thing. And I needed that. That was the type of event I just needed. So, yeah. Some people know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to get into them. But, yeah. That's kind of my most recent thing.
One thing I got to do just the other night, it was February the 7th, Sunday night. Here in Canada, Cineplex, which is our movie chain here, has been doing for the last number of years something called the Digital Film Festival. And every year they have about a dozen or so movies that they bring back from the archives, movies that are like 5 years old, 10 years old, 30 or more years old. And the other night, I got to see Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, in a digitally remastered form in the big screen.
Ooh.
Oh, that was so good. It's a movie that I've seen many, many times because it's one of my favorites. Even numbers and all that. But, the tension, the energy between Kirk and Khan, Chekhov and Captain Terrell and all the different bit players that aren't just little bits. Everybody has such a significant impact on the story and the plot of this one that it had me riveted. And even in that, with how many times I've seen it, I can't help but get swept up by it. And certain scenes, I'll catch myself, my eyes will wander and examine the sets and the props and say, ooh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder how they did that. But as soon as anything happens again, boom, I'm right back into it. And I just love it. That's my passion for Star Trek. The characters, the camaraderie, the tension, the excitement. May it never die in you.
I do have good news on the Task Force Bravo front. I've got Craig, who some people know from the tournament videos I've been putting up on the shipyard. He is now going to be playing Hirogen in the campaign. The fun part of what he's doing is he will be scavenging and picking up pieces of things as we go along. So he'll be gaining weapons and tech and crew. Not so much crew, but different pieces of things as we keep on going. And I think it'll be a really interesting thing to roleplay and to bring to the campaign story arc. As for how the Hirogen get into the story, well, that's part of the fun.
Isn't it always?
Yeah. So I've been writing that, and we're going to get that filmed here in the next couple of weeks, probably post-regionals, but...
Yeah,
more on that to come. But just wanted to give people an update. Task Force Bravo is not dead. It's just stalled due to, well, regionals and life events.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of wraps up our intro. But for a main topic, when we did our Wave 21 review, due to, well, computer problems, we didn't actually get to talk about Weapon Zero, which was kind of fortuitous because at the time we still had questions about what exactly Weapon Zero was due to the way the StarTrek.com preview was set up. But now it's out, and it's making some rather pleasant surprises in the game.
Making waves.
And I have to just say, big picture, I love what this is doing for the game. I think that it's surprising a lot of people with what it's bringing and making people go, huh, I didn't think they'd do that.
I haven't heard a lot of the reports. I've seen a little bit, but I'm definitely curious as to what others are doing with it.
Well, so the named ability is the thing that's kicking around and making people play it. To get defense dice equal to the number of hits and crits that your opponent rolls for an Ox token. That's a pretty cool named ability.
No kidding.
I mean, if a Borg ship had that, everybody would be complaining.
No kidding.
The Xindi weapon, of course, has some issues. It's only a forward 90 firing arc. It doesn't move all that well. It moves like a standard ship. It still, of course, has the rule from the FAQ where if it bumps a ship with a hull value of 6 or less, it still gets an action. So there's that. And the model looks gorgeous. Maybe it doesn't look absolutely amazing, but it looks really good. It needs some credit for that.
A light dusting to sort of dull the gloss might make it look a little better, but other than that, it's pretty solid.
Sure, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Make it look more like a weapon rather than a painted desk figure.
Or like a summer bouncy ball.
Yeah. Softball gone rogue.
Oh, it smells like those ones that you get at the department stores in the summer. Take to the beach.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it's squishy. It's not hard plastic. It's not like foam, but it's that dense but squishable plastic. Or slightly flexible. Yeah.
Okay. See, I've yet to actually get it, and that's for a couple of reasons, but I'm okay with that. I still want it. It's not due to a lack of desire.
Oh, I'm sure you'll appreciate it once you do get it, though.
Oh, I'm sure. I've got a spot picked out for it. right between Deep Space Nine and the big board cube.
Oh.
Yeah, so that named ability kicks around. You've got the Xindi captain from the aquatic prize ship, Kayafet Amensur, that gives you rerolls of your defense dice. I think it's only the blanks.
When defending during the modified defense dice step, you may re-roll one of your blank results. If your ship's hull value is greater than the attacking ship's hull value, you may re-roll all of your blank results.
There you go. And with a hull value of 8, you're basically higher than everything else.
Pretty much.
Not absolutely everything. Big Board Cube, Deep Space Nine, Queen Vessel Prime, a few things you're not higher than, but just about everything else. So that's pretty good. And of course, there are some rules debates on can you add defense dice, like Hood Riker, Tom Paris, Sulu, stuff like that. As far as the Fellowship of the Rules is concerned, we say yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting part. When defending during the roll defense dice step, you may roll one defense die for each hit or crit result rolled by the attacking ship. If you do so, place an auxiliary power token beside your ship. Now, the way the game has gone in the past, it's basically just add. It can be construed as something that, well, you are replacing any other roll defense ability with this. But, again, the history of the game, the way things are played out, there's no precedent for that, so you would be rolling this in addition.
Yeah. Well, it's more you can choose the order of operations.
Right. Yeah, like it doesn't say roll +1, but it's kind of assumed at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, that's something that maybe Worf will actually answer since they've been answering questions lately.
Yeah, we got a few more rulings this last week.
Yeah. But I'd be happy to see them actually give a ruling on that. Until then, I think it's fun to say, hey, let's let this thing be as diabolical as we want it to be, because...
see where it goes.
It's a big ship that you're already investing a lot of points into. It doesn't have all that much durability. It only goes so far.
We don't want it to be the early Deep Space Nine where people got excited, they put it on the table, and then it gets obliterated in one round of attacks.
Right.
Which we've since curbed that. We've got some quite good builds. But this one is starting out good, and we want to see if it can stay that way.
Yeah, and getting defense dice per attack, somebody did the math on Board Game Geek, and with 8 durability and defense dice back, it's still only going to average out to a little less than 12 total attacks based on green dice. Because green dice don't roll evades that often.
They're about a third, roughly. So if they got three hits and crits on you total, you're rolling 3, you're only going to be rolling on average 1 evade. But if you've got the, Kayafet Amensur re-rolling blanks, and possibly any other means of modifying, you've got a much better chance of survival.
Right. That's where you start getting into the really good range.
The other caveat, of course, is you take an Ox every time you use the ability. So if you're getting attacked more than once, you're going to be breeding Ox tokens.
Yeah, good luck ever getting actions again.
Yeah, Wesley Crusher?
Oh, true. I think it's one of those things where this is a good ship. I wish the pack had better support, because the rest of the pack is lackluster. But it's still pretty cool. It's a piece that I think is better off being in the game than not being in the game. And while it's in the game, I say let's play it and have fun with it.
Yeah, there's a number of good cards on there, minor caveats only though, really. Like the rotating emitters. The only thing really against it is that it's range 1. Otherwise, 4 attack, disabled to shoot in any direction.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
pretty
okay
handy.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah, self-destruct, nobody really wants to blow up a big ship. Unless, of course, you're using something like cheat death, which this does not say you can't, so technically you can. So some shenanigans there.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is self-destruct baked into those big ships. Maybe not so much the weapon ship, but Deep Space Nine, the big Borg cube, those things, when they're destroyed, debris is everywhere.
Yeah, not so much a self-destruct, but when destroyed,
Yeah.
Well,
and that's what I mean. When this ship goes kaboom, everything within range 1 is taking damage. Because you just can't get away from it.
Yeah, like every ship within range 1 gets an automatic crit, range 2 gets a hit, range 3 you roll 1 die. Kind of thing. Yeah.
Range 3 roll a defense die. If you roll an evade, you don't take anything. If you don't, you take a normal hit. And I think that would be reasonable. That's an extension of TCW1 with the planet going boom, except they did 2 damage, 1 damage, nothing.
Yeah.
So, and this isn't a planet with atmosphere. This is a large ship. So,
energy, antimatter, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not just rocks and chunks and stuff.
I'm stealing those rules for my campaign.
Giver.
Hey, I've seen some people suggest that, and it works. I don't want to do... I've seen people suggest, like, the Big Borg Cube use its self-destruct sequence with roll whole value of dice. I don't want to go there.
Right.
I think that's a bit much.
Well, especially, like, if a ship is taking damage, the more damage it takes, the more splayed around,
Yeah. But I'm with you. I like that crit damage roll. Yeah. And that keeps it fun.
Yeah, because we don't want to go into more complicated rules, like, well, if your hull is this or lower, you're just dead, blah, 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 because then it just makes the game less fun and more work. But this adds an element of pseudo-realism, but still keeping the game functional and flowing.
I may even adapt a modification of those rules for the large base ships, so like a tactical cube or the Xindi weapon, because those still produce a fair amount of debris.
Well, like fighters, if you're in range 1 with fighters, you roll 1 defense die for each token, and for any that you don't evade, you lose a token.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We got some ideas here. Where's my notebook when I need it?
Speaking of custom concepts or scenarios, somebody posted in the Facebook Star Trek Attack Wing community page about, what ways do you play your casual games when it's not OP scenarios. And just on the spot, I came up with a demolition derby concept. Basically, you just run around trying to bump the other guy and deal damage that way. And it's simultaneous movement, and you do damage based on how many ranges you covered in your motion from where both of you started to where you hit each other. So the longer distance you travel, the more damage you do when you hit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it's minimum 1 damage, so it's like, halve, round up, or all that kind of stuff. I posted the details on that page. So, yeah. It's a work in progress because it was pretty off the cuff, but, put a bit of thought into it even.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. All right. I think that's a good stopping point for us. So we're going to turn it over to our contributors and hear what they have to say this week.
Hi, I'm Dave Griffin. Today we're discussing the Under Attack mission, which came with the USS Equinox and recreates the Voyager episode, also called Equinox. The forces are Federation, 40 points, including 1 and only 1 Nova-class ship, named or unnamed, and the enemy ship, which on the Voyager episode was Voyager, including 1 and only 1 ship of an unspecified faction, so you can play around a little with this. The placement is an unusually small 36 by 24 map, where you're essentially closer to your enemy than you would usually be. The Federation sets up on the south edge, that's the Nova class, and the enemy sets up on the north edge, which is effectively Voyager in the episode. Now, there is one special rule in this episode, and that is that after any ship moves, it must choose to either voluntarily lose one crew or suffer one damage, although it may use its action to prevent that effect. And the objectives are simple. On both sides, it's just to destroy the other ship. Now, the problem with this scenario is that a lot's changed since the Equinox has come out. As you're probably aware, there is a build combo going around the meta right now where Equinox's perk, allowing it to disable one shield and get all its shields back at the end, can make it pretty much invincible if it uses some of the new upgrades which allow it to have more shield. Consider a system upgrade in Unimatrix shielding would give it 6 shields, so that means it could absorb 5 hits per turn. Against a single other ship, it would be invincible. So I recommend that you don't equip the Eclipse with those upgrades. At most, give it one more shield from, say, a system upgrade. If you give it more than that, then probably if you use Voyager, it could fire all day and never get through. I would say that Voyager versus Equinox is not a bad match here if you don't spam the shields on the Equinox. The Equinox has lower attack strength, but it's much more resistant to damage. They're about equally maneuverable, give or take. Probably Equinox has a slight edge there. Riker 7's not a bad choice for the Equinox captain. TOS Chekhov is a good buy for Voyager since its perk gives it 360 fire, but with an Aux token, so Chekhov can let him do a lot more extensive maneuvers to get rid of that Aux token. Voyager needs about 4 to 5 dice to get through to Equinox shields if it's using its standard perk. So it's better to save up for a few really good shots at the Equinox rather than shoot at it all the time. So doing a target lock on one turn, using somebody like Spock to give you that target lock so you can use your ship action to resist the damage is a good idea. And maybe on the next turn you use Spock to give you a scan to help you get through Equinox's shields, or even take an extra damage from the life form to get you battle stations too, to get a really good hard hit against the Equinox. So that also means that for both ships, having something that allows you to regenerate is a good idea, especially for the Equinox. You can extend and try and repair. All in all, I think it's a good match. It's a fun scenario. I'd rate it 3.5 stars. The only problem is that Equinox's current ability is much more powerful than it was originally created, so balancing the scenario is difficult. You might find when you play, depending on the builds on both sides, that it's unbalanced on one side or the other, and it'll take maybe a little bit of horse trading on the part of both players to get a good battle that both of them can agree is fair and balanced. Thanks, and have fun with this episode.
Good evening, and welcome to the Faction Report, the segment that brings you the inside scoop on all the factions. We'll show you how they really work, expose their weaknesses, find innovative combinations, and help you make them work better. And now here's your host, the man who is not Picard, David Walton.
Hi everyone, I'm not Picard, and last time I spoke to you about combo breaking. This time I thought another thing that every fleet should be able to deal with is fighters. So, fighters, there are 3 types of fighters in the game at the moment. 2 that you see regularly, and then Romulan fighters, which I don't think I've seen played yet. I have been tempted to play them, but not really for any other reason than just to try them out, just as something different. Fighters are damage absorbers. They allow a player to make sure that however much damage you do to them, they're only going to lose 1 token. Or are they? There are a number of ways of dealing with fighters, that most of which came with the reinforcement blind brick, but there are some others too. Now, basically in order to deal with fighters, you need to be able to target them multiple times. You need to be able to shoot more than once, or you need some kind of upgrade like weapon ports that would allow you to take multiple tokens off. Now the obvious one is obviously weapon ports, the Ferengi upgrade, that allows you to do additional damage to fighters. There's also upgraded phases, the Federation upgrade, that allows you to take multiple tokens off a fighter stat by virtue of the fact that if you do damage to a fighter squadron you can fire at them again. But I wanted to try and avoid the obvious with this particular section, and so I was going to look at other abilities that allow you to split fire. If they've got fighters in their fleet, they've also got to have fighter carriers in their fleet. Fighter carriers have to be ships with hull 4 or more, and because they're taking fighters, often these ships aren't the most amazing ships in the world. Certainly, I've seen people run 3 sets of Fed fighters and 3 Bear Constitution class ships too. So, if you can get a ability, a weapon that allows you to split fire between the fighters and another target, you only need possibly a couple of dice to fire at the fighters to take that token off, and then you can concentrate the rest of your fire on the ship themselves. So, the starting point for me is the Coronac. Now, the Coronac was a Wave 2 release for the Dominion, and its named ability, if there is a scan token by your ship, you can split fire between more than one target. This is brilliant for targeting fighters on the one hand and the carrier ship on the other with that attack. Also, the original Borg Sphere, which I think is 4270, I might be wrong there, allowed you to split your primary weapon fire between more than one target. Both of those factions, Borg and Dominion, also have upgrade that allow you to split fire between more than one ship as a weapons upgrade. Forward Weapons Grid, which I believe came with the Kraxon, allows you to split fire between more than one target. And Full Assault was the Borg version that allowed you to split your fire between more than one target. And if you were firing from a Borg tactical cube, essentially gave you 9 dice to split between up to 3 different targets. Now, it isn't just weapons upgrade that allow you to split fire that are good against fighters. You might be wishing to use elite talents, for example, that would allow you to split fire. Something like Fire at Will, which came with the Enterprise E, which is -1 attack dice but allows you to target more than one ship. Or another elite talent upgrade that there is out there, Once More Into the Breach. Now, this has a big downside because it doesn't allow you to roll defense dice when you're doing it, but it does allow you to fire twice, and that's really good against fighters. There are other upgrades that allow you to fire in the activation phase, things like Admiral Worf or Strafing Run, that allow you to target things, fighters for example, outside of your normal firing sequence. It's really useful against fighters because it gets their captain skill down and it gets their firepower down before they're able to fire, because you're attacking them in the activation phase, and I think that is a really useful tactic. One of the best tactics I've seen was using a number of upgrades that came with the Jaeger blind booster from the Collective OP series. The Jaeger has an upgrade called Preemptive Strike that allows you to roll a number of dice as an action. Really useful to have, knocks those fighter tokens off, and that's a really useful ability to have. Finally, there are other weapon upgrades like Secondary Torpedo Launcher or Barrage of Torpedoes that would allow you to do additional attacks that allows you to weaken the fighters. The thing is with fighters as well, once they've lost a couple of tokens, they're not going to be using those 6 dice that are ever so scary. And that first token on the fighters is probably not going to have a lot of evade dice behind it, and because it's not going to have a lot of evade dice behind it, it's quite easy to get rid of, and that is the key one to get rid of. So there you go, some ideas for dealing with fighters for each faction. Try and knock them off by splitting attacks between them and a carrier. Use abilities and elite talents that allow you to attack in the activation phase, and just get rid of that first token as quickly as possible, because they're a lot easier to deal with after they've lost that first token. Thanks very much for listening. I'm not Picard.
Are you tired of always building to win?
Do you love playing but struggle to build fleets?
Do you struggle to defeat the guy who has everything?
Do you wish you could play the game without being so serious?
Then we've got the segment for you.
This is Natasha.
And Dave. And you're listening to...
Dude, it's just a game.
Alright, we're back with more Wave Zero Hidden Treasure. What do you have in store for us this week?
Well, I have a couple of really great cards from a couple of really great expansions. And I think when we're talking about Wave Zero, we're talking about expansions that got kind of... had a lot going on, and so it was easy for these cards to get lost. So first up, let's talk about the USS Enterprise that came out in Wave Zero. So this was the expansion that had really great cards like Cheat Death and Hikaru Sulu. And there's one that I think gets overlooked a lot, and that's the Nyota Uhura. I'm saying that wrong, but that's okay. There.
We just call her Uhura. Makes it easier.
It might be Ahura. So Ahura is a 3-point discard, and you discard her immediately before you move in order to change your maneuver. And I think this is a card that could see a lot of use in tournament play today. There have been actions that I've needed to do in order for my fleet to work effectively, and if I happen to bump a ship or anything like that, then I'm not able to do that. So you being able to discard Ahura and do a better maneuver would have been really great at times like that.
Well, and of course there's times where you have a plan, and then everybody does something else, and then you get the whole pinball effect where one ship makes a move that you weren't expecting, so your first ship bumps them, causing your second ship to bump your first ship, and now your third ship would bump, and then you have no actions for the round. Throw out Uhura, and now you've got a different move, and you'll actually get an action this round.
Right. And then I know there are now a lot of cards that allow your opponent to interfere with your maneuver, or even in certain cases choose your maneuver. So if you could discard Ahura to be able to just kind of override those situations, that would be really great.
Yeah, well, it's that last minute change. You get to pick that moment where you want to choose your move. And that can be very useful, and 3 points is not an unreasonable cost for that.
Right. And like I said, there's just so many great cards in that pack. I think she just kind of got overlooked at that time, but I think she's a really valuable asset at this time.
Yeah, I think so too. So that's Nyota Uhura from the Tiny Prize expansion in Wave Zero. What else do you have for us?
So I thought for our last one, we'd look at the USS Reliant.
Ah yes, the Reliant, another good pack. Pavel Chekhov sees a lot of play these days. Konsing, Captain, sees some decent play. I stab at the Superior Intellect. Those see a decent amount of play.
Yeah, but I think the one that kind of, again, just gets overlooked because of all the other great cards is Joachim.
Or as I called him for many years, Joachim.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I guess it's better that it wasn't Joachim.
Yeah.
So, what it says is when you inflict a crit on an enemy ship's hull, you draw 2 damage cards instead of 1 and choose which one to place. So what that does is that allows you to kind of have a little more control and maybe try to get the warp core breach or a direct hit, and it makes that victory extremely satisfying.
Yeah.
It's not an action, and you don't have to disable it, and you don't have to discard it, and it's every time you inflict a crit. So it's kind of a constant thing that you can do to mess with your opponent the whole game, and he's only 4 points, so I think that's extremely worth it.
Yeah, 4 points is where it gets that tiny bit pricey. You start going, that's a lot to pay for something you don't know for sure that you're getting. It's hard to get crits continuously.
I would say that the ability to have control over which crits are inflicted, I'd say it's worth 4 points. I don't think it's that pricey. I think that they did better with the prices in the beginning, in terms of it being pretty equivalent. I think the fact that you don't have to discard it, disable it, and it's not an action overrides the 4 cost.
Yeah, well, I think it's maybe safe to say if they put this card out today, it would probably be 5 points and a disable.
Probably. So I think it's just a really great card that gets overlooked, and that definitely people should be running that, and maybe we'll even see it at regionals.
I wouldn't go that far, but maybe at your next OP, it'll show up somewhere.
I think I'm going to run it at regionals just to spite you.
Of course you are.
Anyway, so that's it for Wave 0. There's tons more cards in that, in those 6 ships that I'd love to sit and talk about. But those were the 4 that I really feel I don't see played. And I just wanted to give some people some ideas of cards that maybe will help you with your build.
I like it. So stay tuned next episode when we'll go digging for treasure in Wave 1. Who knows what we'll find there. Yeah, between the 5th Wing Patrol ship, Kronos 1, the Praetus, and the Defiant, I'm sure something there is going to make a difference. But there you go.
Alright, so thanks everyone for listening. We hope you're enjoying this exploration, and we will see you next week.
So until then, remember,
dude, it's just a game.
Welcome to the Ready Room. My name's Daniel, and I'll be your host for this segment of the show. Now, the Cold War is finally over, and it looks like our ships are heading right into a void. Here are the rules to the scenario, the void. Each player, in turn, starting with the highest ranked player, places 1 objective token in the play area until 4 objective tokens have been placed. They must be placed in an 8 by 36 area centered north to south in the center of the play area, and no objective token may be placed within range 1 of the east or west edges of the play area or another objective token. These tokens represent destroyed ships that are floating adrift in the void. Each player places 3 mission tokens in a stack on top of each of his or her ship card. Place 2 mission tokens in a stack on top of each objective token. These tokens represent a ship's resource. The entire play area is considered a void. Therefore, during the end of every round, each ship must perform one of the following options. 1. Remove 1 of the mission tokens from on top of its ship card from the game, or 2. Disable 1 of your upgrades, or 3. Suffer 1 damage to a ship's hull or shields. Players may choose which of these options and may do different ones every round. In addition, if a ship executes a maneuver with a speed greater than 3, that ship must immediately perform one of the above options. Conserving energy. A ship may spend its action to remove all disabled upgrades from all its disabled upgrades. That ship cannot perform any free actions and cannot attack during the round in which they use this ability. In addition, place an auxiliary token beside that ship. The mission tokens represent resources. On your turn, you may attempt to steal resources from another ship. During the activation phase, a ship that is within range 1 to 2 of any other ship or an objective token may perform the following action. Target 1 ship or objective token that is within range 1 to 2 of your ship. Steal 1 mission token from on top of that target ship's ship card, or all of the mission tokens from on top of one of the target objective tokens and place them on top of your ship card. If the target ship is not cloaked and has no active shields, you may steal all of the resources and place them on your ship. If a ship is destroyed, all resources or mission tokens on that ship card is destroyed as well. The game ends as usual when all opponents' ships are destroyed or time runs out. Now there's a bonus. At the end of the game, each player gains 5 fleet points for each mission token on his or her ship. There's definitely a few don'ts in this scenario. First off, you do not want to take a ship with no shields, because that way your opponent can take all of the resources or mission tokens right off of that ship. Another thing is cloak ships are risky in this scenario. You just need to know when and when not to cloak so your opponent does not take all the mission tokens from your ship. Well, in this scenario, I've only come up with one strategy. This strategy involves stealing or ganking your opponent's ships. One tip that I should have mentioned earlier is that you're going to want, if you have the points, a lot of cheap upgrades that may come in handy if you have the extra slots. This way, you don't have to take off mission tokens or suffer any damage to your ship. You can just disable these cheap point upgrades. I'm pretty sure the strategy of using cheap point upgrades to disable may be widely used. But if you have cards that steal or destroy an opponent's upgrades, they will then be forced to spend a mission token or suffer damage to their ship. Why not one-up it? Why don't you put on cards that disable an opponent's shields? That way, another one of your ships can steal the mission tokens from that ship. And in order to prevent your shields from being disabled or destroyed, add on cards that repair shields so you could keep those mission tokens, because in the end, sometimes those 5 extra points make the difference of the game. Last but not least, the last thing to worry about is maneuvering. You don't want to be losing a mission token or disabling an upgrade needlessly by just going over a speed of 3. Maybe the first turn to get into jousting range, firing range, whatever, to your opponent, but after that, you're going to need a good maneuvering ship, or at least a ship with a good firing arc that doesn't really need to move faster than 3. Klingons have very maneuverable ships, for example. Excelsiors have a good arc. But in the end, the choice is yours. I'm just here to lay the foundation. Well, you have the ships. You have the cards. Now make it so. I'll see you next time when we talk about the Doomsday Machine. End transmission.
And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Question of the Week, where we pose your questions to all of the contributors in the hopes that someone will get it right. This week's question of the week: which card would you ask to be your Valentine? Yes, PSA, Valentine's Day is Sunday. Don't mess it up. So I'm going to kick this one off. I have a very interesting Valentine. My Valentine is the Aldara. One could say it's the Aldara of my eye. Okay, get the groaning out now. And, there's a couple reasons for it. One, it's a really cool named ability. Getting to change your movement because you feel like it is original. And to have it as a repetitive ability is unique. But second, that's the named ship that almost took down Bioship Omega in Natasha's and my booster tournament. And almost no one saw that coming, including the two of us. For good memories and for doing something very unique, I would like the Aldara to be my Valentine.
Well, I hope you two have a happy trek across the cosmos together. My Valentine has multiple personalities. I call it the many beards of Riker, because depending on what situation you're in, odds are there's a version of Riker fit for you, or in this case, me. When you have, Hathaway Riker, where you get a +1 to your attack and defense when you're facing a ship with a larger hull than you. You've got Hood Riker that can give you defense and conversion to help you survive more. You've got the Pach Riker, which allows you to have extra captain skill. William E. Riker, the one from the Enterprise E that gets you free actions, extra crew slot. And the list goes on. Like you've got the Admiral, you've got the other versions, you've got the Mirror Captain. There's so many of them. I think the only two we're really missing at this point is the Bajoran Riker Will, and of course our Maquis favorite, Thomas Riker.
I'd like that one.
So that's why my beard fellow is my Valentine for Star Trek Attack. What's yours, folks?
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina, coming to you for today's question of the week, which is, what card would I like to be my Valentine? Well, that's an easy one for me. It has to be out of the independent faction, the crew card Sakona. Sakona, if you remember from the episode, was on a DS9 episode, she played a Vulcan that was a arms dealer and was trying to acquire arms from Quark. I like the character, love the character actually. One, not only because of the looks and being a Vulcan, but also she had great interaction with Quark in that episode. Transfer that to the game. She gives a -2 cost to weapons that go on a ship, and I've used her on many of my builds when I wanted to build a powerful, hard-hitting ship. She made the cost factor very convenient, especially when you're playing those photon torpedoes at a cost of 5, bringing them down to a cost of 3. So that would be my Valentine choice, not only for the game, but it would be neat to have an interaction with Sakona. This is Steve Stott from Ready to Play in Columbia, South Carolina, making this year, hoping that all your hits are crits. Take care, live long and prosper.
Hey everyone, it's Natasha from Dude, It's Just a Game. The card that would be my Valentine would definitely have to be the Fed Fighter 6 expansion ship thing. For one thing, they have an extremely nice ability for fighters. And for another, they've really helped me a lot in a lot of different scenarios. And they add something to kind of newer players. They're a little harder to kill, leave you alive a little longer. And they're a really great support ship. Now, of course, there have been some cards that have started coming out that are messing with fighters, and so fighters and I may be breaking up very soon. That's okay. This year, they're still my Valentine.
Hi everyone, Not Picard here. Which card would I ask to be my Valentine? So, bit of an odd question, and I'm struggling here to think of which card I'd want to be my Valentine. So, on Valentine's Day, which card would I want to spend time with? Which card would I get the most enjoyment out of being with? And I think from that point of view, the card I would ask to be my Valentine is, after much consideration, probably Donatra. Donatra is a card that encourages you to have friends, encourages you to have other ships in your fleet. She has that elite talent, so she's got a little bit of extra ability, a little bit of uniqueness, and the captain's skill is high, but not too high that you're going to be overwhelmed by her. So there you go. My Valentine's date of a card would be Donatra, and I feel thoroughly silly telling you that. Thanks very much. I'm Not Picard.
Hi, I'm Dave Griffin, and I'm going to pick Gates McFadden or Dr. Beverly Crusher as my Valentine if I had a choice. And I think her best card in the game is as a mirror captain, 3 points, 5 skill. If you perform the green maneuver this round, each time you defend this round, you may convert one of your battle station's result into an evade result. So it's not the best card in the game, but it's not bad. She's a decent captain, and what the heck, I think she deserves some more play than she gets.
Greetings, Warp Core Breach listeners. This is Bane of Borg with episode 26. My Valentine is going to be the DS9 Gen Con promo Quark, a Ferengi crew member with a Ferengi cost of 2. Out of faction penalty would be 3. The card reads this: at the start of the game, place one non-Borg tech or weapon upgrade with the cost of 5 or less face down beneath this card. At any time, you may discard Quark to flip that upgrade that is beneath this card face up and deploy it to your ship, even if it exceeds your ship's restrictions. Now, what I like about this card is that at any time, number one. Number two, it does conceal something from your opponent at the start of the game. I guess the biggest thing is it allows me to carry cloaked mines on ships that don't have tech slots. Or, in the case of, let's say, a Prometheus Special Photon Torpedo with a cost of 5, I can get away with only paying 3 points for that, so it saves some points. I've used this Quark to my advantage in OP events since the board kind of went out of I guess the game's sort of with the rules change, at least in the competitive environment. So I think I am the only one in my venue that has the DS9 Gen Con promo Quark. But as it is, it's a great little card, great little crewman to have aboard your fleet, aboard your ship. Versatility, point saving, surprise, all those great things in a package of a Ferengi. So, again, DS9 Gen Con promo Quark was my Valentine, and I guess this is Bane of Borg signing off. Thank you for listening.
Hey guys, it's Daniel from To the Ready Room, and the card that I'd have to ask to be my Valentine would be a set of cards. And those cards would be the one and only Officer Resource cards. Now yes, they've just passed away this month of February, but just ask anyone I've played against with this resource. I always make the best combos, and attack dice, rerolls, and a bunch of shenanigans. And now they're finally gone. So again, the card that I asked to be my Valentine would be the Officer Resource cards.
One exercise I've been suggesting to certain players, particularly new players that need a little bit of perspective or find themselves hitting a bit of a rut with limited collection, is play your opponent. Reverse the tables. You build your build, they build their build, you play it, and then switch so that you can not only learn how the other side fights, but also get a little bit more perspective for yourself. It'll help you do better against them next time. It'll help get you a new appreciation for ships and cards that you don't own. So it's a great way to know your enemy, know yourself.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I know early on when I was helping Natasha out, at first she said, hey, build my fleet for me and then, walk me through what to do.
Right.
And then it was, okay, now build 2 fleets and let me pick which one I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to build 2 equally good fleets, because whichever one she didn't want, that was going to be mine.
Yeah. And that's how we've been doing our scenario casual days lately. One player builds both sides and offers it up to the opponent. They choose what side they want to play.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple episodes ago, so that's been going well. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. There's been definite interest.
Yeah, so when you do those kinds of things, I think everybody wins and you get better.
Absolutely, and that's the key. You got to step outside of your box. Unless, of course, it's the TARDIS, which is bigger on the inside, so there's no limits there. But this is the Star Trek universe, so we have boundaries, we have limits. But we want to teach you and show you how to push those limits to become better captain, better admiral, better fleet admirals.
I thought Push the Limit was a Star Wars card.
Very well, maybe.
Warp core breach in 10, 9.
All right.
8.
On that note,
7,
we better get out of here
6,
because this thing's about to go.
5.
So until next
4,
time.
This is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.